song goes hard as hell. The breakdowns are insane. The riffs are crazy. Is this in drop Z tuning?
You know what? It was just the vocals. That's it. That was the only thing holding me back from truly being able to get into Knocked Loose on the few times I've tried over the last couple years. I wanted to like A Tear in the Fabric of Life, but got 2 songs in and just decided it wasn't for me. Which is fine, there's tons of media in any genre, especially genres you're really into, that sometimes you just don't click with. Not everybody who's into FPS games is into Titanfall. And those people are stupid. There are factors ranging from snare mix to vocal intelligibility to can I recognize what chords are being played that I've recognized could be turnoffs for me when checking out music that I haven't heard before. So why then does You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To currently sit at number 1 on my 2024 playlist? The only answer that makes sense? This was just the perfect storm. I went a long time thinking KL's strain of metal and hardcore just wasn't my thing, but after seeing them pop up in the news, in YouTube recommendations, or any number of Counting Worms memes, and eventually it just becomes a pull that you can't ignore. Especially when Deep in the Willow dropped. Not close, motherfucker! Even if the single blew up because of that call-out, Upon Loss was the first point a Knocked Loose song got stuck in my head. Drum groove, ignorant riffs, creepy sound design, I was in, and I wasn't turned off by the vocals as much. That led to binging Hate 5-6 sets, doing Wikipedia deep dives, and by the time Blinding Faith came out, I was a lot more ready and willing to give this band an actual shot. Now I own a record of theirs that I bought at my local Target that I think is in a league of its own amongst any other album that's been released this year. Again, how did we arrive at this point? It's because You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To clicks with me on several levels before even considering the aspects of Knocked Loose that I wasn't fully sold on. The riffs, song structure, transitions, production, and the nightmarish journey it takes you on front to back are all components I really enjoyed at a high enough level to make the complete package of this album a super compelling one. It feels complete, start to finish, where Thirst throws the first punch and Sid and Morin leaves you thinking about the other 50 that you took while listening to this thing. There's not a song that stands out in a weird way from anything else. It's all cut from the same cloth, same thematic ideas, same atmosphere. And in a genre where albums can diversify pretty heavily song to song in tuning and character, I really love that this album is nothing but creepy chromatic riffs in A standard for the whole runtime. It picks its plan of attack and then just keeps beating you with it. It's also only 27 minutes, and that's pretty perfect. I do sometimes appreciate metal music when it just slaps you to death, and that length doesn't overstay its welcome, because each song is distinct enough that it takes you on a journey, even if that journey is a fucking nightmare, and it makes you want to revisit it more than once, and that point alone is the hallmark of a pretty well-crafted experience. Ashen last year was great at a pretty similar idea, but after a point started feeling exhausting and like it was blending together. You Won't Go doesn't do that, and it makes you really appreciate everything that they managed to pack into that runtime. It's like going through a haunted house over and over again because you want to. Blistering thesis statement, my favorite groove and song on the record, excellent collab and that reggae and breakdown, slightly more traditional 2-chorus ass kicker, 46 seconds of what the fuck did I just listen to, song that slows things down but amps up the terror, another good collab with a more melodic structure, creepy drums and a beat switch on the breakdown, Blinding Faith, and a dope example of what happens when hardcore brain musicians make something a little more melodramatic. Fucking ripper, dude. This record traps you in a room with it and has you fearing for your life by the time it's done with you, in a way that goes past the conventions of most hardcore. Yeah, the riffs are fucking massive, but if you watch them be played out, it's a lot more technically complex than you might catch on first listen, and every song being in A minor just helps them all lock together as one interconnected one-handed animal. And everyone will mention the production, but it's warranted. Drew Folk and Company crafted a horror movie soundscape and stuck it inside a hardcore album. That snare ring gets tuned out of most modern metalcore records, but leaving it in and making it as prominent as it is almost acts like the first sign that you're entering dangerous new territory with this album. In any other context, I might have found it annoying, but here I think it only adds to the chaos. That forest drone hum with the birds in the background, that gets used periodically as a transition. It's ominous as hell and really makes you feel like something bad's about to happen, so they totally nailed the atmosphere. And the other little moments, like keeping the metronome in on Slaughterhouse 2, cutting Brian's scream short on Take Me Home, or the girls' lines on Sid and Mourn that are just drowning in effects. Drew and Zach and Jesse concocted something really special to aid with the band's artistic statements, and it doesn't sound like anything else that's been produced in the genre this year. But the thing I think I was most surprised by was that Poppy feature. It's fantastic. Blends with Brian's register really well. It sounds visceral and genuine. I know people are clamoring for her to now do more stuff with KL, and I wouldn't say no, but the way that this song used her and Brian in tandem is so good already. I'm just kind of happy to let it exist as the special moment that it is. It's kind of crazy how the whole record was finished up already, and then they added this song in there. The Chris Motionless feature is probably one of the only things I slightly knock this album for. Not because Chris didn't do a good job, but his vocal style almost sounds out of place in the vibe that the album has crafted up until the point where Slaughterhouse 2 kicks in. Plus, his line, "one mutilation under God," sounds a little forced in there. Maybe I would have believed it more if Brian had been the one saying it, but oh well. I will say I do vibe with it a little more than the original Slaughterhouse on Scoring the End of the World, and there's something really satisfying about hearing a bleh on a Knocked Loose track. So all of that is what I was considering and appreciating before even really taking the vocals into account. And by the time I really thought about it, I realized I didn't have those same misgivings here. Because You Won't Go wouldn't have had the same impact if it wasn't for Brian, Isaac, and now Nico doing what they do. It's why Chris's vocals sounded so jarring. Brian's vocals make this album experience. Do I like it when vocalists have a range beyond one primary tone? Yeah. But Nico's shouts sound reminiscent of Brendan from Structures. Isaac's growls are a good contrast. And Brian fucking debuted gutturals on this thing. Plus, Brian's performance sounds almost clearer on this record for some reason. Maybe it actually is, maybe it's just the production, maybe I'm kidding myself, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, this was my favorite Knocked Loose release that I've ever heard. But the last reason I think this finally broke through for me, this album is Upon Loss extended. Tons of the same concepts from Deep in the Willow and Everything is Quiet Now got blown up bigger and better on this album, even used the same producer, and because I really started vibing with the band on that single, it really only makes sense that the album would hit even harder. You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To slaps. Maybe that means I deep dive through the rest of their discography at some point. Maybe this is where that interest dies down, but if nothing else, this album does prove the prevailing theory that eventually the bands you sleep on will get you with something if you let them.